Values. These made-up values cover the essential humanity of us all. And the fact that our culture in Iran or in what we call the Muslim world, where, they're so different from one another. I mean, Germany and France and England and America, that we do not call Christian countries, have far more in common than Indonesia and Malaysia and Afghanistan and Iran, yet we give them that reductionist view. But if our culture is not Rumi, is not Ferdowsi, is not Hafiz, is not Al-Farabi, some of the greatest philosophers and poets of the world, if our culture is the Sharia laws, where they lowered as soon as this government came into power in Iran, the first thing that they targeted was women. Because women in Iran, we had women ministers, we had women in the parliament, we had Minister for Women's Affairs. The first thing they targeted was the family protection law. And they changed the age of marriage from 18 to 9 for females. They brought a punishment that does not exist in the history of Iran, which was stoning women and men to death for what they called adultery and prostitution. They defrocked women like the Nobel laureate Shirin Ebadi, because she was the first woman circuit judge in Iran, because they said women are too weak to judge. Women became the canaries in the mine. The way they looked, the way they walked, the way they felt, it all became a standard of what this regime was all about. Then they went into the cultural issues. I always tell it in my book, I wrote about it, they cut Desdemona from most scenes in the production of Sir Laurence Olivier's Othello. And they cut Othello's suicide because they said that the masses become depressed if Sir Laurence Olivier commits suicide on the screen. Apparently Sir Laurence Olivier does not people do not become depressed when they stone them to death. They say, oh, it's our culture, obviously, we like to be stoned, these Western idiots who tell us otherwise, are imposing their culture on us. But they get really depressed by Sir Laurence Olivier committing suicide. Remember in Russia, not Russia, of course, Putin's Russia reminds me very much of Soviet Union. That is another matter we need to discuss some other point. But the whole idea that in Soviet Union, Scott Fitzgerald, Hemingway, Camus, Sartre were all banned and called decadent, imperialist. The fact that in the production of Swan Lake, they took the death of the swan out of the ballet because they said that the masses will be depressed if the swan dies. The fact that during Stalin's times, all the paintings, the masses had to always be depicted as happy. They were all smiling, and the picture of the great leader, like the picture of Ayatollah Khomeini, was up there. Shows you that they even use the same words, like when Khomeini talks about decadent Western culture, and he means Faulkner and Edgar Allan Poe and even Dan Brown. I mean, I'm a little iffy about Dan Brown, but nonetheless, let him write. We can always say nasty things about it. But anyway, to make a long story short, what I'm trying to say is that every culture has something to be ashamed of. That if Sharia laws are the culture of Muslim countries, then Inquisition is the culture of Europe, not St. Thomas Aquinas and St. Augustine. If what they call Islam is the real Islam, which it isn't, then that sort of Christianity is what the real Christianity is. Then we should all be Jerry Falwell. I mean, how many different forms of Christianity do we have in this country? Is Obama a good Christian, or a Jerry Falwell, or George Bush, or Hillary Clinton? They all go to church. So if there is such variety of Christianity in this country, why can't there be variety in a country named Iran? That was Zoroastrian for half of its 3,000-year history. So if that is my culture, then fascism and communism, this wall is the culture of Europe. and not Heinrich Böll and Jane Austen and Dante and Flaubert. So to make this long story short, I think what I learned from this wall when I look at it, I think that Stalin was not Russia. That Stalin, as Nabokov used to say, governments come and go, only the trace of genius remains. The way we remember Stalin today and the way we remember Mandelstam today, who has remained and who has been obliterated. This is what we need to remember. And I come now and I want to end by this country, talking about where we are. A lot of times we feel so smart because it seems, hello, sir, madam. I'm sorry. Well, this is, you know, a joyous occasion. So the whole point is that about here, a lot of times we feel very smart because we feel that, okay, look at those people over there, they don't have a lot of things that we have. It is good to appreciate what we have. It is great to appreciate what we have, but the only way you can appreciate what you have is not to feel smug about it. The only way to appreciate what you have is to remember how this country was founded. How many people had to literally give their lives for us to be here today, for us to have a president today who is called Barack Hussein Obama. When in 1970s I was studying in this country, it was not just conceivable that Barack Hussein Obama would be the president, but there were places in this country where he was not allowed to go in. Not only that, his middle name is Hussein, and he chooses to be a Christian. So by the very fact that this country could get from where it was, based on a vision and based on a dream, to where it is, it makes us understand that you can never, never want the world to remain as it is. That you're constantly changing in interaction with the world. During the time before the wall fell in the West, there were so many who would justify Stalin's trials, who would say that these people were really guilty, who would say that people in East Germany really did not want to escape to West Germany. Remember, the fact that something exists and the truth is out there, if we do not seek the truth, that means that we are also implicated. There are no innocents in this world. We are all implicated. Silence is a way of speaking. And the silences that happened in front of this wall for all those years that it existed cost us dearly, not just in the East Europe, but in the West as well. The lesson we learned from the wall is that we constantly look at ourselves questioningly, and we criticize and question ourselves, and then pose the world as a question mark. And the only thing that I can say today in front of this wall is remembering Heinrich Böll's great novel, The Clown. I don't know how many people have read The Clown. The whole idea of the hero of The Clown is that the war with fascism has ended, but the guy, the hero, is worried that we will forget. That we will forget. Memory is the best antidote against the tyranny of time and the tyranny of man. And the only way we can think about the memory of this wall is to remember those who articulated it the best. It's poets, it's philosophers, it's writers. And to remember that then makes us remember that when we think of Iran, when we think of Afghanistan, when we think of Darfur, we have to use this place of learning, because knowledge is always a way of being in the world, perceiving the world, and changing the world. We have to be knowledgeable in order not to be duped one more time into thinking that all is well with them, and so all is well with us. And to use this time of crisis right now in order to bring back what made this country great, the vision, the motion, the constant desire for change that is based on a poetic vision that is America. Thank you so much for